I am Stephen, a 45-year-old construction company owner who once had everything a father could want, especially a strong relationship with my son Ethan. For 19 years, he was my world, my purpose, after losing his mother. Then came that certified letter from his attorney, legally prohibiting me from any contact with my only child. All because I overreacted to a harmless prank, grounding him, taking his electronics, canceling his birthday, and worst of all, giving away the car we rebuilt together. Before I share how I destroyed my relationship with my only son over a simple prank, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever made a parenting decision you deeply regretted. Ethan came into this world on a beautiful spring morning, 19 years ago. My late wife Jennifer and I had tried for 5 years to have a child, enduring 3 miscarriages before our miracle baby finally arrived. From the moment I first held him, I knew my life had changed forever. Jennifer was an incredible mother, patient and nurturing in ways that seemed to come naturally to her, while I was still figuring out diaper changes. Our family was perfect until tragedy struck when Ethan was 10. Jennifer was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer that had already spread to her lymph nodes by the time they caught it. Despite every treatment option available, we lost her just 8 months later. I still remember holding Ethan as we both sobbed by her hospital bed, promising her I would take care of our son and make sure he grew up knowing how much she loved him. The years that followed were incredibly difficult, but also cemented the bond between Ethan and me. I became both mother and father overnight, learning to cook more than just grilled cheese sandwiches, figuring out the complexities of school projects, and having awkward but necessary conversations about puberty and girls. We grieved together, finding our new normal one day at a time. I rearranged my work schedule at my growing construction company to be present for every important moment. I never missed a baseball game, serving as assistant coach for his Little League team for 4 consecutive seasons. I sat at the kitchen table night after night, helping with math homework, even though I had to relearn algebra alongside him. When he joined the debate team in high school, I drove 2 hours to every competition, sitting proudly in the audience as he developed into an articulate young man who could argue circles around me. For his 16th birthday, I wanted to give Ethan something special that would also connect him to his mother. Jennifer had always loved classic cars, often talking about how her father had owned a 1967 Mustang. After months of searching, I found one in terrible condition that was actually within my budget. I showed Ethan pictures of the rusted shell and proposed a project we would restore it together over the next year. Those weekends in the garage became sacred time for us. I taught him everything I knew about engines, bodywork, and restoration. When we encountered problems beyond my knowledge, we researched together or visited specialty shops where the old-timers were happy to educate an eager teenager. Jennifer would have loved seeing her boys with grease-stained hands arguing good-naturedly about paint colors and upholstery options. The day we finally finished the restoration, just in time for his 17th birthday, Ethan was speechless when I handed him the keys. That car represented more than transportation. It symbolized our resilience, our bond, and our ability to create something beautiful despite our loss. Our life had found a comfortable rhythm until I met Diana at a charity fundraiser for cancer research 3 years ago. She was stunning, confident, and successful as a corporate executive at a pharmaceutical company. At 38, she was younger than me, but carried herself with a maturity that instantly attracted me. After years of focusing solely on Ethan and my business, I found myself enjoying adult conversation and connection again. Our relationship progressed quickly. Within 6 months, we were discussing marriage, despite Ethan's obvious reservations. He was polite around Diana, but never warm. When I asked him about it, he shrugged and said, "She seems nice, Dad. If you are happy, I am happy." I chose to take his words at face value rather than recognizing the reluctance behind them. Diana moved into our home after the wedding, immediately implementing changes to what she called our bachelor pad. New furniture appeared, walls were repainted, and household rules were established. Ethan, then 17, found himself suddenly accountable to someone who was neither his parent nor someone he had particularly bonded with. The tensions escalated when Diana became pregnant just months into our marriage. Though unexpected, I was thrilled at the prospect of another child. Ethan maintained a neutral expression when we told him congratulating us with a stiff hug before retreating to his room for the remainder of the evening. Our daughter Sophia arrived just after Ethan's 18th birthday, creating an immediate shift in our family dynamic. Diana was a dedicated but anxious first-time mother, frequently complaining that Ethan's music was too loud for the baby or that his friends tracked dirt into the house when they visited. I found myself constantly mediating between my wife and son, often exhausted by the effort of keeping peace. Diana increasingly voiced concerns about Ethan's attitude and what she perceived as his unwillingness to help with his half-sister. "He just walks right past when she is crying," she would say. Or, "Would it kill him to hold her for 5 minutes while I shower?" I began pressuring Ethan to be more involved, not fully considering that he was in his final year of high school, with college applications, advanced classes, and his own social life to manage. Ethan spent more time away from home. His grades slipped slightly, and the easy conversation we once shared became increasingly rare. When he received his college acceptance letters, he focused exclusively on universities across the country, far from our Colorado home. I felt a pang of sadness, but told myself this was normal, that all children eventually leave the nest. Looking back, I can see how I failed him during this critical time. I was so invested in making my new marriage work and being a good husband and father to Sophia that I gradually abandoned my role as Ethan's advocate and protector. I allowed Diana's perspective to overshadow my understanding of the son I had raised for 18 years. That failure set the stage for the catastrophic events around his 19th birthday. The disaster occurred in early June, 2 months before Ethan was scheduled to leave for college in Massachusetts. Diana had been planning an important dinner party for weeks, inviting her boss and several colleagues who were influential in her company. She stressed the importance of making a good impression, as she was being considered for a significant promotion. I had promised Ethan we would celebrate his 19th birthday the following weekend, with a road trip to the mountains in his Mustang. He was excited about the plan. One last father-son adventure before he moved across the country. In the days leading up to Diana's dinner party, Ethan spent time with his friends, making the most of their final summer together, before everyone scattered to different colleges. The evening of the dinner party, everything was immaculate. Diana had hired a caterer, arranged elaborate floral centerpieces, and transformed our dining room into something from a magazine. Ethan had agreed to make a brief appearance to be polite before heading out with friends for what they called a pre-birthday celebration. The dinner was proceeding perfectly, until Diana went to the garage refrigerator to retrieve additional wine. What happened next was reconstructed from multiple perspectives later. Ethan and 3 friends had set up a harmless but startling prank in the garage. Inspired by horror movies they enjoyed, they had created a scene with fake blood corn syrup and food coloring, a rubber mask, and a recording of spooky sounds, triggered by the garage door opening. It was juvenile and poorly timed, but ultimately harmless. Diana's scream echoed through the house. I rushed to the garage, followed by several dinner guests, to find her standing there, wine bottles shattered at her feet, surrounded by the remnants of the prank. Ethan and his friends appeared from behind the cars, laughing until they saw the expressions on our faces and the company present. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Diana shouted, her voice shaking with anger and embarrassment. "You ruined everything." The dinner guests awkwardly retreated to the dining room while I stared at my son in disbelief. In that moment, all I could see was Diana's humiliation, the broken wine bottles, and the important evening disrupted. My anger flared instantly. "Everyone back inside," I said coldly to the dinner guests before turning to Ethan's friends. "You all need to leave, now." After they departed with mumbled apologies, Ethan tried to explain. "Dad, it was just a stupid joke. We did not know it was during the dinner party. We thought she would come out here later tonight after everyone left." Diana was crying now, mascara streaking down her face. "Just a joke. Your father has done everything for you, and this is how you repay him. By embarrassing me in front of my boss, I should have taken a breath, should have recognized the situation for what it was. A poorly timed teenage prank. Instead, I allowed my anger and Diana's distress to dictate my response. You are grounded." I announced, my voice tight with anger. No going out, no friends. Nothing until you leave for college. Dad, that is 2 months away, Ethan protested. And I am taking your phone, your laptop, everything. You obviously cannot be trusted to behave like an adult. Ethan's expression shifted from defensive to hurt. It was just a prank. Nobody was hurt. Your birthday trip is canceled too. I continued, escalating the punishment with each sentence. And give me your car keys, right now. The color drained from Ethan's face. My car. Dad, we rebuilt that together. It is mine. Not anymore. Not until you learn some respect. Diana, still wiping tears, added, Honestly, Steve and Sophia will need a car eventually anyway. Ethan is leaving for college. He does not need it there. I nodded, the cruel words leaving my mouth before I could reconsider. Your sister can have it. Consider it hers now. Ethan stared at me in shock, his eyes filling with tears he refused to let fall. Sophia is 1 year old, and that was Mom's dream car. We built it together after she died. You should have thought about that before pulling this stunt, I replied, holding out my hand for the keys. With shaking hands, Ethan placed the Mustang keys in my palm, then turned and walked into the house. I returned to damage control at the dinner party, assuring everyone the unpleasantness was handled. When I checked Ethan's room later that night, he was gone along with a backpack and some clothes. I assumed he had gone to stay with a friend to cool off. I told myself it was probably for the best, giving everyone space to calm down. 3 days passed without word from Ethan. My initial anger had subsided, replaced by growing concern. I tried calling his phone only to discover it was still in his desk drawer where he had left it after I confiscated his electronics. His friends claimed not to know where he was, though I suspected they were covering for him. A week after the incident, I received a certified letter. Inside was a formal notice from an attorney stating that Ethan Williams no longer wished to have any contact with me and that any attempts to contact him would be considered harassment. The letter mentioned he had secured emergency student loans to cover summer housing at his university and had made arrangements for the remainder of his belongings to be collected by a third party. I was stunned. This level of response seemed wildly disproportionate to what had happened. I immediately tried to locate him through friends, social media, and even by contacting the university, all without success. Each attempt was met with silence or the information that Ethan had specifically requested privacy. The reality began to sink in. I had lost my son. Over a prank. Over an impulsive, excessive punishment delivered in anger. Over a car that meant everything to him, not just as transportation, but as a connection to his mother and to me. And I had casually given it to a 1-year-old who could not even walk yet, let alone drive. For the first few weeks after receiving the attorney's letter, I convinced myself Ethan was overreacting. Diana reinforced this perspective, frequently commenting that he needed to grow up and learn about consequences. She suggested his response proved he was not mature enough for college and perhaps needed a gap year with stricter rules. I continued attempting to reach Ethan despite the legal warning. I called mutual friends, sent emails to his school account, and even drove by his best friend Jason's house several times hoping to catch a glimpse of him. Each effort proved futile. It was as if my son had simply erased me from his life with surgical precision. A full month after the incident, reality began to settle in. I was in the basement, organizing some tools, when I found a box of photos from the Mustang restoration project. Image after image showed Ethan and me working side by side, covered in grease, smiling proudly as each piece of the car came together. The final photo was of us standing beside the completed car, my arm around my son's shoulders, both of us beaming with pride. I sat on the concrete floor and wept for the first time since my wife died. That evening I approached Diana about the severity of our reaction. I think we went too far with Ethan's punishment, I said as we cleaned up after dinner. The car especially. That meant a lot to him. Diana barely looked up from wiping Sophia's high chair. He will get over it. Teenagers are dramatic. Once he realizes how expensive life is without Daddy's money, he will be back. He took out student loans rather than ask me for help, I pointed out. I do not think money is going to bring him back. She sighed dramatically. Why are we still talking about this? You have another child who actually appreciates you right here. She lifted Sophia from her high chair, effectively ending the conversation. 2 days later, I came home from work to find Diana in the driveway staging photos of Sophia sitting in the driver's seat of Ethan's Mustang. She had tied an enormous pink bow around the hood ornament and was cooing at our daughter's smile for the camera. It is Sophia's car now. Something snapped inside me. What are you doing? I demanded. Just taking some cute pictures for Sophia's baby book, Diana replied casually. I thought it would be adorable to document her first car. Take her out of there right now, I said, my voice low, and controlled despite my internal rage. That is not her car. But you said. I know what I said. I was wrong. That night after Diana went to bed, I called Jason, Ethan's best friend since middle school. After several ignored calls, he finally answered. Mr. Williams, I cannot tell you where Ethan is. He made me promise. I am not asking for that, I said quietly. I just want to know if he is okay. Jason was silent for a long moment. He is surviving. Can you tell me what happened? From his perspective, I need to understand. The dam broke. Jason spoke for nearly an hour, detailing how Ethan had felt increasingly pushed aside after my marriage to Diana. How he tried to be understanding because he wanted me to be happy again after losing his mom. He described Ethan's attempts to connect with Sophia, despite Diana's constant criticism of his efforts. Most painfully, he shared Ethan's words the night of the prank. He said Dad finally showed his true colors tonight. He chose his new family. He has been waiting for an excuse to cut me loose, and I gave it to him. Ethan was just waiting for you to prove what he already feared, Mr. Williams. And you did. The truth of Jason's words cut through my self-delusion. I had indeed chosen my new family over my son, prioritized Diana's feelings over the child I had raised for 19 years. And the car, the symbol of our bond, had been weaponized as the ultimate rejection. The next morning, I confronted Diana over breakfast. I need you to acknowledge your part in what happened with Ethan, I began. She looked up from her coffee with a cold expression. My part? You mean being disrespected in my own home, being humiliated in front of my colleagues, having my stepdaughter's party ruined by his childish behavior. He made a mistake, I countered. We went nuclear over a practical joke. He got what he deserved, she stated flatly. And honestly, things have been much more peaceful around here without his attitude. Sophia deserves a home without that negativity. Her words revealed a truth I had been avoiding. Diana had never wanted Ethan in our lives. His removal had been a goal, not an unfortunate consequence. I want my son back, I said firmly. Diana's expression hardened. If you pursue this, you need to understand what is at stake. It is either your ungrateful son or your daughter and me. You cannot have both. In that moment, the scales fell from my eyes. I saw the manipulation that had been present throughout our relationship, the subtle ways she had driven wedges between Ethan and me, her constant undermining of our bond. I did not answer her ultimatum that day, but in my heart, I had already begun to choose. The following weeks brought painful soul-searching. I revisited memories of promises made to Jennifer on her deathbed, commitments to care for our son that I had broken out of weakness, and a desire for an easier path. I thought about Ethan alone in a college dorm, having arranged housing and finances by himself, rather than ask for my help. I attempted to send money to Ethan through his university, only to have it returned with a note that the student had declined the funds. I discovered he had blocked me on all social media platforms and changed his phone number. The wall between us was complete and impenetrable. Depression settled over me like a heavy blanket as months passed, with no contact. I missed his first Christmas away from home, sending gifts to his university address that were returned unopened. My marriage to Diana deteriorated rapidly, culminating in a trial separation 6 months after Ethan left. The foundation of our relationship could not withstand the weight of truth that now pressed upon it. My journey back to myself began in a therapist's office in January. Dr. Marshall specialized in family estrangement, and father-son relationships. Our first session was brutally honest. "You betrayed your son's trust on multiple levels," he stated after hearing my story. "First, by allowing your new wife to gradually push him out of his home, then by the extreme punishment, and finally by giving away something that represented his connection to both you and his late mother. From his perspective, you eliminated him from your family entirely." "How do I fix this?" I asked desperately. "You might not be able to," Dr. Marshall replied. "Some breaks cannot be mended. But if there is any chance, it begins with you taking full responsibility without excuses, making amends without expectations, and demonstrating change over a significant period of time." Those sessions became the foundation for rebuilding myself as the father I had once been. I filed for divorce from Diana after realizing the toxic nature of our relationship. The process was contentious but necessary, especially in ensuring Sophia's well-being through a shared custody arrangement that would allow me to be present in her life without sacrificing my integrity. During the divorce negotiations, I insisted on keeping the Mustang despite Diana's attempts to claim it as marital property. "That car belongs to Ethan," I stated firmly to both our attorneys. "It was never mine to give away." Once the car was legally secured, I spent weekends restoring it to perfect condition again, correcting the neglect of recent months. Each turn of a wrench felt like a wordless apology to my absent son. I began writing weekly letters to Ethan that I never sent, documenting my journey, acknowledging my failures and sharing my hopes without placing any burden of response on him. These letters filled a journal then, 2, then 3, becoming a map of my path toward becoming worthy of his forgiveness. After considerable reflection, I made the decision to sell my construction company. The business had been successful, but had also consumed time that should have been devoted to my family. I used a portion of the proceeds to establish a trust fund for Ethan, one he could access with or without reconnecting with me. Through mutual friends, I learned that Ethan maintained contact with his maternal grandparents. I reached out to them, not asking for information about him, but simply to reconnect and apologize for my failures. They were understandably guarded, but agreed to meet for coffee. "Ethan is doing well academically," his grandmother finally offered after our third meeting. "But he is not the same carefree boy. There is a sadness in him now." I would give anything to undo what I did. I told them honestly. His grandfather studied me for a long moment. "After a year of consistent effort on your part, we might be willing to pass along a letter from you. But just one. And it would be entirely his choice whether to read it or respond." I agreed immediately to their terms, continuing my therapy, maintaining my sobriety, another change I had made, and demonstrating through actions, rather than words, that I was committed to being a better man. When the year mark arrived, I carefully composed a letter that acknowledged my complete fault without making excuses, expressed love without expectations, and offered contact only if and when Ethan might ever want it. 3 more months passed in silence. I continued rebuilding my life, focusing on being present for Sophia during my custody time while never allowing her to replace Ethan in my heart. I had accepted that I might never hear from my son again, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, the Mustang still running. My hands trembled so badly, I could barely type a response. "Perfect condition. Waiting for you whenever you are ready." Our text exchanges, over the following weeks, were cautious and brief. I was careful never to push responding to his messages, but rarely initiating. After a month, he suggested meeting at a coffee shop halfway between my home and his university during his spring break. Seeing him walk through the door nearly brought me to tears. At almost 20, he looked more mature, his shoulders broader, his expression more guarded than I remembered. We sat across from each other in awkward silence, until I finally placed the Mustang keys on the table between us. "It was always yours," I said simply. "I was wrong." He did not take the keys immediately. "I did not come for the car. I know. But it belongs with you regardless." We talked for almost 2 hours. Stilted at first, then with increasing openness. I listened far more than I spoke, hearing about his classes, his new friends, his plans for the future. When he finally asked why I had given the car to Sophia, I told him the complete truth about my failures, my weaknesses, and the divorce that had followed. I cannot undo what I did, I concluded, but I want you to know that not a day has passed that I have not regretted it with my entire being. Ethan nodded slowly, finally reaching for the keys. I am not ready to forgive everything he said honestly, but I am willing to try moving forward. It was more than I deserved, and I told him so. As we parted, our hug was brief but real, the first tiny step on a very long road. In the months that followed, we established a cautious new relationship. Occasional text messages became semi-regular phone calls. He agreed to meet Sophia properly during a supervised visit, acknowledging that his feelings toward his half-sister had nothing to do with her, and everything to do with the circumstances. I continue to respect Ethan's boundaries, while demonstrating through consistent action that I am not the same man who betrayed him. The hardest lesson I learned through this ordeal is that true parental love is not about control or authority, but about supporting your child's growth, even when it means acknowledging your own failures. The relationship we are slowly rebuilding will never be the same as what we had before. That innocent trust is gone forever. But there is hope for something new, something built on honesty and respect rather than obligation. I came terrifyingly close to losing my son forever, over pride, poor judgment, and misplaced priorities. I will spend the rest of my life making sure he knows he is irreplaceable. If you have ever damaged a relationship with someone you love, what did you do to make amends? Share your story in the comments below. And if this experience resonated with you, please hit the subscribe button and like this video so others might learn from my mistakes without having to make them. Share this with someone who might need to hear that repairing relationships takes time, consistency, and genuine change. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, it is never too late to admit when you are wrong, but the road back is often longer and harder than you could ever imagine.